Thank you for having me again at Worktech. Philip, looking back to Manchester and London and whenever we had the chance to be together at Worktech, actually you posed really a challenge, asking me to talk about what's next, and at the same time coming up on the stage this morning and bringing a whole set of new ideas on table, and okay, what's left for me now? Well, luckily, there is some things, and there's also some things I disagree with, what you mentioned, but I will come back to that in a minute. Well, as I've been introduced, I'm with Fraunhofer. Fraunhofer is the largest research organization for applied research in Europe. We have 22,000 staff. We're organized in 66 institutes, each of them focusing on one typical engineering domain, and just a few of them are cross-domain work-oriented, and one of them is indeed Fraunhofer. This is, by the way, the place I work in. By the chance, if you have a chance to come to Stuttgart to visit us, it's an interesting work place to be at, and a nice laboratory. Philip, Fraunhofer, you've been there just a few weeks ago. Worth to come and see. Well, as I said, quite large, distributed over in Germany predominantly, but also outside. Our location with work organization, we are located in Stuttgart, and we are named, and this is maybe interesting, after a guy called Josef von Fraunhofer. He hasn't been the founder, but he had three generic characteristics which made him interesting to be basically the patron of the whole organization. He was a researcher, he was an inventor, and he was an entrepreneur. So we are asked basically to develop solutions that are really viable for bringing into practice, and that's what we are also measured by. We are not the ones to do the groundbreaking, Nobel Prize winning works. We rather think that it's important to get things into practice, and one of the really important things which you got into practice, and everyone has it in his pocket, in your pocket, is MP3. That's the one single item that really was the far-reaching product of our work. I will come back to this picture in particular during my course of the talk today, because it's about light. Josef von Fraunhofer was researching light, particularly was interested in the solar spectrum, and actually these black lines here are called Fraunhofer lines because of these two lines, because we do not receive light in this particular frequency from the sun. We know what kind of elements, what kind of chemical processes are ongoing on the sun, and that's why we have a better understanding of our solar system. But light is really important, also important for the workplace. As I said, I'm heading a group on work environments, especially focusing on information work, knowledge work, and I'm interested in what tools actually help us to improve work. In fact, I don't know if you know that joke about, it's not a joke, it's actually a story about Einstein. Einstein was once asked by one of his students, dear professor, the questions in this exam are the same than in last year's exam. And he said, yes, but the answers this year are different. And that's exactly the job we are dealing with. We're having always the same question, trying to improve people's performance, people's well-being at work, but at the same time, we are trying to manage with the improved work environment. Here are some pictures from our labs, and you will see we're our own guinea pigs. We always have been, and we're always trying to see what works and what doesn't work, not just particular in the workplace, originally the office, but also in other locations like the hotel, while traveling, or in dealing with the elderly, thinking about how people might be working when they are a little bit handicapped or something. How do we deal with that? One of the major issues is, of course, virtual elements, virtual reality, visualization, and so on. And I mean, it's really interesting. I don't know who has been following the news yesterday. Facebook has spent again a couple of billion dollars. They bought Oculus, one of the companies that make VR glasses. a technology that puts you completely into virtual reality, but at the same time you're losing track of the reality you are in. So I'm curious to see what comes there, but in fact the potential of such a technology is great, and I'm happy to say that if companies today are using virtual reality, for example, for prototyping in the automotive industry, some basis software is coming from us. About the Light Fusion Lab, I will tell you in a minute. Basis for our work is a project called Office 21. We started it back in 1996 because we wanted to know basically how is work organized in the 21st century. It was clear it's going to be more in the office and less in the production, so it's going to be Office 21. We just wanted to make a quick look into the future as researchers, write up a report, and hope that that's done. Well, stupid enough, our customers liked what they read, and they asked us, could you please continue? So we had to continue, and it's still going on. It didn't stop in 2012. In fact, Plantronics knows we are just finishing, and Vodafone knows that we're just finishing this research phase right now, starting the next one in the 1st of April 2014. But let's get now to content. What's next? Well, let me put it that way. I strongly believe that whatever is next in the work context has something to do with sustainably managing the workforce and your own possibility to contribute. So we see that we need tentatively to work longer. We like to work longer as well. Philip, you will surely say something about that. But we will need to be able to, both mentally and physically. And for doing that, we need support from all different aspects. So we need to have basically a human work process. We need to do our work as efficient as possible, and basically have effective as possible, and have an efficient work infrastructure. Basically, leading us to the situation that we really can sustainably manage with the forces, the powers we have. Well, we are today in a somewhat awkward environment. Awkward in that sense, not because it's not nice, the building, and so it's like, but in an environment which I remembered, I received last night an email, be aware there is no Wi-Fi. Be aware there is no connectivity in that space. Well, how many places in the world are there that have no connection anymore, or not yet any connection? Well, maybe somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean, there is a place where there is no connection to anything, maybe some satellites watching, but otherwise nothing else. We are not living anymore in a place where we are not connected, and therefore I just recommend you just go to YouTube, watch this work environments video. This work environments video is a result of our Office 21 project, which that we have published a good year or so ago. Basically, again, a look into the future, and we put up 250 statements, condensed them into about 50, asked a couple of hundred experts to vote on these statements, and from the results we picked some highlights and made a scenario. It's a 6-minute video titled Work Environments 4.0, and why 4.0? It's not just a number, it's based because we originally started work in the office, started with a pen. Then we came up with a typewriter, then we came up with the PC, and honestly today everything is mobile. So that's 4.0, and then the question is, what does this do to our work process? And I just give you some highlights. Of course, we can be mobile, so we can be working anywhere. You know that for sure. The question is still, how do we organize that in particular? What are elements that actually help us to get a work-life integration, and is there particular solutions to actually help us to do that? Finding the off switch, for example. Companies in this country particularly try to deal with these issues either by really switching off technology, BlackBerry servers, email servers, and so on. Others are trying to get it done by simple organizing, forbidding sending and receiving emails from the staff during certain hours. Nevertheless, we need to deal with that issue. So, second, has been mentioned, in this country we are particularly looking for qualified staff. And the question is, what is qualified staff for a company? Can you make sure that you have all you need at your fingertips when needed? Well, in fact, there is two groups of personnel which you might have. You have, first of all, you might have a permanent staff which you really want to care of. You take care that they are really mentally fit, physically fit. They feel well. They don't have the opportunity or the wish to actually switch companies. We see a reverse trend to some extent, that people are not necessarily willing to change jobs once they actually have an interesting job, a challenging job, and a good work environment where they actually feel well. The second part of it is, of course, drawing on others' expertise outside the organization, project-based and so on, and really bringing them in on a need basis. We see a large development towards third places regarding work locations. Not just working in the office, not just working at home, but also some kind of like co-working centers. In fact, back in 2004 to 2005, I was involved in one project that actually was one of the first co-working centers in the world, actually built up in Finland. We didn't call it co-working center, but that was exactly what it was. It meant to be a working space for freelancers, for individual workers to come together, to share the work environment, to have a spirit, why to go to work, and not actually just have more of a drive. And this is something that really pops up, and when you see we just made a study, the exponential increase of these locations, and especially of its users, you know that there is something coming up. I mentioned already that we need to take care that there is people need to be mentally and physically fit. One issue which we really need to deal with is really the health issue of our employees. When you look at students today, what do they do before taking exams? Well, they do not stop to drink Red Bull. They go a little bit further to actually be alert enough during exams. And this is something that is worrisome to watch, because we are basically pushing our limits further for a certain amount of time, but there is a danger to not just push the limits for a certain amount of time, but rather pushing it too hard with negative consequences. But these are just some highlight pictures from that video. I just want to give you some figures as well, where you see basically, for example, flexible forms of working, absolutely agreed by 95% of the people we asked. Or is work-life balance a new status symbol? Yes, it will be a new status symbol. And this includes automatically really finding the off switch. At the same time, as I mentioned, we see companies that really more and more care about their employees, and in all aspects of their life, not just the work life. And we see that companies are actually coming back and asking seniors to come back to work, bring their experience in on a very regular basis, and that is something that we need to consider also from a work organization perspective. I always used to say that's the next big thing, and I'm happy that we have Smart here today, because I always thought we will see a much faster dissemination of the technology in the workplace. Well, we haven't. Well, why not? Well, it hasn't been as easy to use as we want it to. And it's sometimes cumbersome. You need different solutions. But still, that is something that is the next big thing, and I'm looking really forward to that company that really is able to do that on a quite inexpensive and simultaneously easy to use way, and that's going to be really big changing the workplace. Then we will work, as I said, on touch-sensitive and digital surfaces. We deal, of course, with cloud technologies and smart rooms. You mentioned that before, Philip. Our work environments will become interactive. And one element that I wanted to mention particularly was the issue of light. You have experienced that before, Philip, that we have developed in our laboratory and put it in one of our meeting rooms, just like this, little outside light of so-called virtual sky. This virtual sky consists of 30,000 LEDs. It looks like a screen, more or less, and you can really have a depiction of a sky in a full light spectrum in it. So you are not really aware that you're sitting in a dark room. Actually, chronobiologists here from the research hospital Charité tell us we're living actually in biological darkness. In fact, this room is much too dark for us to be in. Not just for this period of time, but we need actually, in a general office, is much too dark. And on top of that, during nighttime, we are actually sleeping in too light places. That, in effect, will have a very negative effect on our health, and they predict a significant increase on cancer sicknesses. Well, I don't want to go into detail. Here you see still a part of our tests in the virtual sky. We're dealing with what we call light fusion, because the base technology is actually the same, both for light emission as well as information provision, LEDs. So actually, with light we can transmit information, and with screens we actually can light up the room, and that will change. And in fact, you see here one particular picture is a translucent screen. You can actually see there that you can see through, and you use it as a screen, and that will transform how our windows, for example, are being built. What's the difference between these two pictures? I call it management attention. Especially, I mean, we are in this British embassy right now, and I'm sure there's more people knowing in this building more about this than I do. But in fact, this picture has led to the fact that we're thinking more about data privacy and how to deal with. One other thing is induction technology, basically how to provide wirelessly power. Another thing is 3D printing. This is a picture taken at CeBIT, it was mentioned before. This little buddy was really coming from out of the 3D printer, and then you plugged in still some mechatronic devices, and ready was your robot. So that technology will also change significantly the way we work, and therefore also basically how we need to organize our workplace. We talk a lot about these smart watches and smart gear. Well, finally there might be a possible application. Our colleagues from Fraunhofer actually are working on this. You have here a wristband and actually recognize the move of your hand, so you can actually air write. Okay, so you can write, and it automatically takes the content up. Secure access, at least to data. You don't need the highest security level. You know, fingerprintings are not the biggest security hurdle, but still safer than anything else. And yeah, what's next? And this is one picture I want to refer to. Well, you mentioned people are really uneasy about this. Because they're not aware if they are really watch that or not. And in fact, there's two big hurdles I see. One is you really have to get used to use these things, because your eyes are focusing on two different levels, and your brain has to really learn how to switch between these two levels. And the second thing is a cultural shift. I don't know if you know what it means if you do this. All right, so, yeah. Thank you very much. It's time for me to switch off. Thank you for your attention.